What's going on YouTube? Josh here checking in, and I wanted to have a conversation about CBD oils, CBD creams, all that good old stuff. So let's chat. Alright guys, so CBD, aka cannabidiol, is a component of marijuana. Now it's not CBD, the stuff that makes you high, but it is something that is within marijuana. It's one of the hundreds of cannabinoids, and there are many purported benefits. You know, if you follow Instagram or YouTube, really the whole fitness social media scene, there's tons of people promoting this product to help you with everything from aches and pains to muscle soreness, recovery, even help you with your sleep and anxiety. So it sounds pretty great, you know, like kind of a silver bullet, kind of one size fits all, helps you with all your ailments, it's natural. I mean, sign me up guys, it's not even that expensive. So let's pump the brakes here a little bit and let's take a look at see what the research says. So if you actually dive into this scientific research, you'll see that the overwhelming majority of studies are done in mice. Now there's nothing wrong with that, there's a lot of science starts off studying things in animals because it's a lot easier to study than in humans. Now the problem here is that despite this promising evidence in these mice models, there's not a tremendous amount of human data. So let's talk a little bit about the human data. Now you may have seen on Instagram, some of the people who are supporting these products will often share scientific articles that have CBD or cannabidiol within the title, and then some other fancy medical terms, and they'll oftentimes fill in some stuff below with like all the full text of the article. And I saw one of these recently and I almost laughed because I can almost guarantee you that the people sharing these articles don't understand 50% of the words that are in the articles. Because if they did, they would know that they're not actually supporting CBD for the use that they are suggesting. So what I'm getting at is in the human studies that have been done, none of them have been done in the population that are basically that are using the CBD as a supplement, not even close. So for example, all the claims about pain. Now, in the human studies, pretty much all the studies are done either in people who have chronic pain or neuropathic pain. Now, chronic pain is a very complex syndrome, multifactorial. Oftentimes, these individuals are on numerous medications. So a lot of these people end up also having cancer and other medical comorbidities. So it gets complicated. There's a lot of co-founding issues, despite the fact that it's a randomized controlled trial, right? Like there's still a lot of issues with that, and it's not the same population. Now, what about neuropathic pain? Neuropathic pain is essentially a fancy way of saying that there's pain that's originating from nerves, okay? There's some kind of a nerve problem. Diabetics often can get neuropathic pain. There's a lot of other etiologies of neuropathic pain. But suffice it to say that the overwhelming majority of individuals in the fitness community who are basically prominent in the social media scene, who I would say for the most part are under 40 years old, and for the most part probably don't really have many medical conditions, if any at all, are not the same group of people. Now, the claims on anxiety and sleep, I honestly haven't delved as deeply into the research on that, and so I'm not gonna comment on that, but I could almost guarantee you that there's not a high level of evidence for this stuff. I think there's some really interesting studies. I think a lot of the stuff is promising. I think I'd love to see where this goes when we get some more funding, when we're able to do a little bit better studies and look at other populations of patients. But for now, I think it's probably a little early to be promoting this stuff for everyday use for everyday people. Now, the other thing to consider is the way that these are delivered in the research studies. So most of the times, these supplements that are being basically marketed on social media are recommended as some kind of an oil that you put under your tongue, like with a dropper or a cream of some sort. Now, a lot of the studies that were actually done in humans used basically a formulation where they squirt it in your nose. So that's a totally different delivery method. Now, theoretically, should it work similarly? Maybe, you know, but that's totally different. That's like saying, you know, you're gonna get a shot versus you're gonna get a pill. It's like, it's different. It's not the same thing, okay? So that's another consideration. Now you might say, Josh, come on. There's all these people who say it works. How in the world can you explain that if the science doesn't support it? So the answer to that is, number one, just because we haven't shown it works through high quality science doesn't mean that it doesn't work. It just means that we don't have strong data to support it. Now, there's also a strong possibility that it's not really doing much more than a placebo effect. And the reason for that is multifactorial. Number one, especially things like pain, muscle soreness, those are very subjective, and there's a strong psychological component. Now, I'm not saying that all these things are totally in your head. Obviously, there's a real biologic basis for a lot of things like muscle soreness and pains, but there's also a strong psychological component. And so as a result of that, your mind can play a really strong role in mediating pain. And so you see somebody who you admire, somebody in the fitness community who's got a great physique or who lifts more than you or whatever the case may be, and they say, you know, hey, I've been dealing with these aches and pains. They've been really preventing me from progressing in my training, and I started using this CBD product and it's really helped me. And you see these stories over and over again. And then you say, well, you know, this stuff's not that expensive, it's natural, I'm gonna give it a shot. And it helps you too. What do you know? Well, there's a few things. Number one, you already had buy-in. You thought it was gonna work. So you planted that seed in your head that, hey, this stuff is gonna really help me. And then when it does what you thought it was going to do, you're not surprised. Okay, some people have come out and said, hey, you know, I'm being really objective about this and I felt like it did nothing for me. And that's, some people, it's gonna be like that. But I think overwhelmingly there's a strong amount of people with positive support for this. And that basically, again, plants that seed. Now, the other thing to consider, especially for things like pain, is what would have happened if you hadn't taken CBD, right? So for example, aches and pains, your standard muscle strain. The overwhelming majority of these, if you're not an a-hole and are doing stupid stuff and you allow yourself to recover, well, guess what, guys? If you kind of just take it easy and you work around that in the gym, 2 or 3 weeks, most muscle strains, you're pretty good to go, right? Like that's just the natural history of that sort of an illness, of that sort of injury pattern, okay? So if you hadn't taken this CBD supplement, would you have gotten better on your own? I would say for the overwhelming majority of things, probably would have. So that begs to question, how beneficial is this stuff really? And the answer, guys, is we just don't freaking know. I think that the evidence that we have so far does not support its use in the populations and for the indications that we're currently talking about. There's no standardized dosing. Nobody knows what the right amount of dosing is. Obviously, it's a supplement, so it's not FDA approved, aka it doesn't have all the same safeties and kind of checks and balances as pharmaceuticals do. So you kind of have to really have faith in the person you're buying the supplements from, because there's no double checking to make sure that what you're getting is actually what you're getting. Of course, that's an issue with all supplements, but it's just something to consider. So anyway, guys, that's the video. I'll catch you all in the next video. Post your comments and your questions below, and let's have a conversation.